Yo, what is up, guys? It's Pedro here, and in today's video, we need to talk about this Washington Commanders receiving core, some options for the Week 4 game against the Atlanta Falcons, maybe some trade options, and the rest of the injury report. If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button and that notification bell as well, so you never miss a video. So I've been doing a bunch of injury report videos this week, so we're going to start with the other stuff. I mean, it's obvious, we already know Terry and Jaden are out for this game, but Noah Brown's also out. So we have 4 active receivers: Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, and Chris Moore. That is an absolutely atrocious receiving core. I'm not saying those players are bad, that they're not NFL players, but the fact that those are your top 4 guys, it's a disaster at this point. And like I said, I want to talk more about the wide receiver situation at first, and then talk about the injury stuff later, because again, we kind of already know all this stuff about Terry and Jaden. We'll get into maybe like Bill a little bit later, who I think will play. But the fact that you have Deebo as your 1, Jalen Lane as your 2, maybe, or honestly, my guess is Chris Moore gets the second most yards on the, at least receiving out of the receivers. He gets the, second most receiving yards for the team against the Atlanta Falcons. He's had some big catches this year and has done some good things. And the fact that we're at this point where he might be wide receiver 2, yeah, it's crazy. But Jalen Lane, he needs to step up. Luke McCaffrey, he needs to step up. We've been waiting for a while for him to step up. Last week, he had 57 yards, had a touchdown. It was garbage time, but still, he hasn't done that before. Even before in garbage time, he hadn't done that. So even though it was garbage time, it's progress, because in garbage time before, he wasn't doing that. So shout out to Luke McCaffrey, but hey, the job's not finished. He's got to play even better this week than he did last week and start playing better early. But the thing is last week he wasn't getting a lot of run, until later on in the game. This game, he's going to be getting run a lot, and they're going to have to call up some players for the game. My guess is Ja'Cory Brooks that's what they'll do this week. Give him, bring him up, and that'll be your 5th receiver, and they might just keep him on the 53-man roster throughout next week, or they'll sign a vet and then keep calling up one of the UDFAs off the practice squad. So that is something to consider. Ja'Cory Brooks, though, definitely would like to see him play. I'll be up, it'll be a little bit upsetting if he doesn't get called up. Jacoby Jones is on the practice squad. They have some what's his name, Tay Martin. I could see him maybe getting called up. Maybe they call up 2 guys, because they only have 4. Obviously one of them is going to get called up. But the fact that your number 1's out, your number 3 is out, and I mean, again, I said it yesterday, I don't really consider Noah Brown even on the team at this point. He's just always hurt. Terry, we'll see. They said week to week. They said day to day for Jaden last week, and he's missing 2 games. So they're saying week to week for Terry. I don't know how long that's going to be. My guess is this week, next week, maybe the week after that. At this point, it's just beat the Falcons and then go from there. Hopefully, Jaden's back week 5 against the Los Angeles Chargers. But we'll get into the injury report a little bit later. But I do want to go over some options at the wide receiver position for the Commanders. There's not a lot of options out there. Jamison Crowder, I think that really makes sense. I would bring him back. You got Nelson Aguilar. Some of these guys might be signed. I just looked up free agents. This is on Spot Track, but I know I'm pretty sure Gabe Davis got signed, so I don't know how accurate this is. You got Brandon Powell. Tyler Boyd could be an option. He's a little bit older, but at this point, the beggars can't be choosers for the Commanders. You got Anthony Schwartz. Not a lot of good options on the free agency market. It would more have to be via trade for the Washington Commanders to get something done. And yeah, Jamison Crowder, probably off the vets, is the best bet for the Commanders is to sign Jameson Crowder. It's going to be to the minimum, and you can have him on the active roster and then call up some of the practice squad guys. If Ja'Cory Brooks, though, this is going to be his first game, I'm assuming he gets called up. Maybe it won't be him, but if he has a good game, then maybe you can just keep him on the 53 and maybe sign someone else to the practice squad and go from there. And depends also, maybe Terry has to get put on IR. If he is going to be put on IR, though, they're going to do that before the game, because once you get put on IR, you have to miss 4 games. But if they do it after the game, then that's a game he just missed, and they're going to have to wait another 4 weeks. So it just makes sense. If you already know he's going to be out for that long, just put him on IR, at the moment. So there are some options on the trade block. I know Chris Olave was one. Doubt they trade him. He's still not, I was going to say younger guy. He's maybe not super young, but he's not old, at this point in his career. So, and, the Saints are rebuilding. Maybe they want to trade him, but, he's been playing well. They probably will keep him. Tyreek Hill, though, is definitely an option. He's been upset with the Dolphins situation. They're doing awful. They're 0-3. At some point, it's all going to collapse. They had a players-only meeting week 1 of the season. At some point, it's going to collapse. So whenever that happens, Tyreek Hill likely will get traded. This was a couple weeks ago from Adam Schefter saying that they didn't receive any calls. Okay, cool. But I think that'll change in the next few weeks. I don't think the value on Tyreek's going to be very high. Also, though, I don't really think I want Tyreek Hill. He's older. He is a diva, has a lot of off-the-field issues, locker room issues, and again, he's an older player and is going to cost a lot of money for the Washington Commanders. For me, it's a big no on, Tyreek Hill. I would rather go after someone else. I don't know who's going to be available in the trade market, but a lot of times that kind of unfolds the last couple weeks before the deadline. But real quick, a word from today's sponsor. And a huge shout out to Sleeper for sponsoring today's video. So the Commanders play week 4 against the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday, and I do have a pick for this game. We'll have some more once the other lines are released, once we know if Bill Krosky-Merritt's going to play. But I got Bijan Robinson over 0.5 touchdowns, rushing touchdowns at least. I think he'll get in there once. Deebo Samuel over 7.5 rushing yards. And then Marcus Mariota under 19.5 completions. I think the Commanders going to run the ball a lot against the Atlanta Falcons. And that is $5 bet right there. So make sure you guys check out Sleeper. Use promo code Pedro on Sleeper and get 100% match up to $100. Link in the description. Terms and conditions apply. All right, now let's get into a injury report for the Commanders. We talked a lot about the other stuff. John Bates out, Noah Brown out, Jaden Daniels out, Percy Butler out. No, it doesn't really matter Percy Butler being out or not, the special teams guy, but we have other guys there like Tyler Owens and Jeremy Reeves that are good special teams safeties as well. Noah Brown being out, again, I don't really care at this point with him just because he's always hurt. I'm hoping he recovers and, the recovery's going well and everything like that. But in terms of him playing or not for the Commanders, whatever he adds is a bonus. John Bates being out, that does suck. And 3 straight DMPs and 3 last week too is not good news. But the fact they haven't put him on IR is good news. So maybe he is questionable for next week. Jaden out. It is what it is. They had him resting today, DMP there, but and sorry for the background noise there, but he's going to be out for this week. I would be very surprised if he doesn't play next week, but I've been surprised both weeks at this point. And the Bill Krosky-Merritt was full today, so it looks like he's going to be playing for the Commanders' pause. He's going to be good to go for this game. Seems like it, at least from Dan Quinn, what he was saying. Percy Butler somehow questionable after being a DMP all week. Hopefully he plays, but if not, they're going to be good. Nate Carter out. Kadero Hodge, he's out. The guy who had the big touchdown for the Falcons to win them the game last year. AJ Terrell, one of their best overall players, he is out. So that kind of cancels out the Terry McLaurin stuff. They had a bunch of guys resting. But yeah, the Commanders' injury stuff, it's a mess. I mean, you got all these, 4 players out, and you're 2 best offensive players. And then you have Austin Eckler. He's out for the season. Dietrich Wise is out for the season. Jonathan Jones is out for a while. Will Harris is out for a long time, maybe the season, probably 8 weeks or something, but still just a lot of injuries, man. Maybe Will Harris will come back after that week 12 bye for the Commanders. But that is it for today's video. Hope you guys did enjoy. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe if you guys are new. Peace.